Before we get started, please remember this podcast is for general educational purposes only. We're not providing medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always consult your own healthcare provider about your care. Welcome to Fertility Nurses Unfiltered. 2 nurses, 1 mic, no bullshit. I'm Ashley LaRue, fertility nurse and founder of Fertilities.
And I'm Laura Wepler, fertility nurse and founder of Navigating Fertility with Laura.
You got questions, the internet has a lot of opinions, but what you really need is 2 fertility nurses who aren't afraid to tell the truth.
No scripts, no sugarcoating, just honest, evidence-based nurse-to-nurse conversation. So let's get into it.
Hey everyone, welcome back to this week's episode of Fertility Nurses Unfiltered. As always, Laura and I are super excited to be with you this week. And we're really excited, again, we say this every week, but we are really excited to have our guests on today and to be talking about the topic that we're talking about. So some stories begin with heartbreak. This one begins with hope. After years of infertility and loss, today's guest, Jessica Butcher, was searching for a path to motherhood built on trust and real connection, not just paperwork and procedure. At the same time, our other guest, Amanda Konko, felt called to help another family experience the joy of becoming parents. When the 2 women met, a friendship formed. That friendship became an independent surrogacy journey that changed both of their lives forever. Amanda carried Jessica's daughter. And somewhere along the way, they discovered something neither of them expected. The relationship itself became one of the most meaningful parts of the entire experience. That journey is what inspired Little Seed Match, a private platform built to help intended parents and surrogates connect through shared values, transparency, and authentic relationships, not just logistics. Jessica and Amanda bring a rare, full circle perspective to today's conversation. Jessica speaks as an intended mother who has lived the loss, the hope, and the outcome. And Amanda, speaks as a surrogate, the voice that so often gets left out of the surrogacy conversation entirely. Together, they're going to walk us through what surrogacy actually looks like from both sides of the journey, the misconceptions, the gaps in education and support, the financial realities, and what it really means to find the right match. If you're a fertility nurse, an intended parent, a hopeful surrogate, or just someone trying to understand this world a little bit better, this episode is for you. We're so excited to get into it. So welcome, Jessica and Amanda.
Thank you. We are
Yes,
so
thanks for
excited.
having us.
Yes.
So we'd love to just have you guys tell us in your own words. Obviously, we just read the intro, so people have an idea of where we're coming from, but would love to hear from you all how this started, how you met, and then obviously, that built or started to build Little Seed Match. So yeah, in your own words, tell us where everything started.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Being the intended parent, I'll kind of take you back through my journey. It was a rough 3.5 years. I had 4 losses, 3 miscarriages, and 1 miscarriage. And it was quite a lot of grief going through that. And, going through testing and more testing. And we had spent like over $15,000 in fertility of trying to figure out why I could not carry to full term and what was going on. And we never got answers. And through that, it kind of, you get funneled into this traditional model of surrogacy. And that's when they were like, these are agencies that you can look at. And I remember interviewing like 10 agencies, and it just, the numbers were building and building. It was like 50 to 70,000 just to find me a match, not including paying the surrogate. And they were telling me match times were like 8 months to a year, and none of which would be truly aligned, but I should be like excited that they would just find somebody. And I remember being like, this is so crazy. And I knew that I wasn't the only one. I mean, 1 in 6 women deal with infertility. So I kind of sat in that thought. I'm like, this feels, in the time of when I am grieving and wanting a baby so much, like this carrot is being dangled, and something that's so beautiful. And it wasn't until, I really say, like, God's timing. I was in my 3rd loss. I stepped out of my position at work, and I had to find someone to fill me. And I got connected to Amanda, who was not looking for a job, not looking for any of that. Convinced her to try a working interview, took the job on the first go and loved it. I was still naive and tried to get pregnant again. That's when I had my miscarriage, which was really rough. I lost the baby at home, held the baby for a couple more
Mhm.
weeks after there was no heartbeat, and took time off, went to Europe for a month and came back. And Amanda's like, what are they saying to you? And I said, Sarah, you find a surrogate. She's like, oh my gosh, I felt led and called to do that for 3 years, but it just never felt right. So literally from a month to that day, we started, and I started egg retrieval. So I realized then how beautiful this could be when our personal life really much aligned of our lifestyle, and how that journey was so beautiful and truly easy. I felt like I could finally breathe again. I was like, how can we do this for others? How can we share this and allow it to be this most beautiful journey and give back the autonomy to both
Yeah.
sides? So,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. Amanda, like from your side, I mean, obviously that your story sort of intertwines in that, but
Mhm.
from your own words, like
Yeah,
your experience during that time.
absolutely. So I remember the day I was driving with my husband, and we have a 6 month old, and we have three boys, and my youngest was six at the time, 6 months, and I was like, man, we can do this for somebody else. There's got to be a way to help. And so, Googling, came across surrogacy, started to do the intake forms, and it was form after form. It just felt almost like I was trying to sell a car. It just felt so impersonal.
Mm.
And I was just like, oh no, like it didn't resonate. And so I set it down, came back, and I felt like this human connection wasn't there, and it wasn't for me. And I just didn't understand, because the best way I can describe it is that I'll never feel like I'm done having children. I feel like I'm brought, a purpose of mine is to bring life into this world. And that's when I started to look at surrogacy and finding, what, it doesn't have to be my own. I can help a family have what I'm so lucky to have so easily. And so now it's about 4 years, but 3 years before Jessica and I met, it kind of just nothing happened in those 3 years. And so when she came back, it still wasn't in my thought process because it kind of was buried. And then when she mentioned surrogacy, I all of a sudden felt like this wave of hope, not just for her, but for me, because it's something that has always been there. And now I got to fill my own cup. And I felt called, and I feel honored. And it was it was beautiful from that day on. And like Jessica was mentioning, we realized that the traditional model, agency, was for us too transactional, and there had to be a different way. And so we went through our journey realizing that, wow, alignment is huge. The match makes the journey. It
Yes.
made it
Yeah.
so amazing in order to advocate with each other for what the simple goal of this healthy baby was. Advocate together instead of trying to convince each other, trying to work through a middleman in order to find out what Jessica was saying and what I thought. And so it that's where Little Seed Match stemmed from, is we need to get the match to be, beautiful, no gatekeeping,
Yeah.
focus on alignment, transparency. And it's been amazing. It's so much bigger than Jessica and I. We're here to help other
Yeah.
families have a path.
That's amazing.
It is
So,
amazing.
am I understanding correctly then, Amanda, that you went prior to meeting Jessica, when you had
Mhm.
been like, okay, I have this call to do surrogacy, and you had started filling out some paperwork. Did you ever put that paperwork forward, or were you just like, this just feels so impersonal, and you just kind of put it to the side?
Yeah, I spoke to, I guess what they were, as a coordinator or a recruiter. I'm not quite sure. And it just felt like I was being corralled with a bunch of other women into this pen, and we just sit there and wait until a match happens. And where I spoke a lot to this person was about my core, my beliefs, that I really wanted to resonate, my lifestyle. I wanted the person I was going to help carry for understand my holistic approach to life and what that meant for me when carrying a child, that I wouldn't compromise for somebody else. And it felt like I was almost not almost like I had to do something different to help them market me better. And I was
Mm.
not willing to put some of those non-negotiables out of the way, because I knew it wasn't going to be good for me and my family.
Yeah, I kind of think about like, and I will be bluntly honest, I am pretty naive on the surrogate like that aspect of third party reproduction. And so I've been especially excited for this conversation because part of
Yeah.
what I get to do on this podcast is I get to learn.
Mhm.
And so, but my, I guess, limited understanding in a lot of cases with surrogacy or, gestational carrier is that there may never be contact necessarily between the gestational carrier and the intended parent, or that contact is very
Exactly.
little, and a lot of that communication happens through a lawyer,
Mhm.
especially as you said, like those things of your lifestyle and what maybe the intended parent
Yeah.
wants for the gestational carrier to, like, how they should be eating, or I've
Yeah.
heard
All
stories of,
all of
like,
it.
you know I heard from a lawyer friend. She said that one of the cases that she worked on, they were buying, like, all new pots and pans for their GC
Mhm.
because they didn't want them
Mhm.
using, plastic and things like that.
And
But it was
yeah.
all
Yeah.
happening through the lawyer.
It
Yeah,
is.
yeah. It's sad because it's one of the most important journeys you're going to go on. And you think about if you compare it to a marriage, right?
Mhm.
And it's like you wouldn't want to be coordinating through a third party every time you just wanted to talk about something simple or beautiful or help pour into each other. And all of a sudden, we've created something so transactional and third party. And how is that being like given to the other person? We don't know,
That
you
almost sounds
know?
more like a divorce.
It is. It's kind of
Yeah.
like you're set up from the beginning to not have this easy communication, right?
Mhm.
And because they tell you, like I remember when I was talking to them, they're like, "Well, we sit in on the first initial consultation with you and the GC, and like there's certain things you can't mention and talk about." So a lot of times both parties aren't aware of things that are being said to them. And
Mm.
again,
Mm.
that causes, again, imagine like the telephone game in your marriage. Like never really works out well, and all of a sudden we're bringing life and we're supposed to be like excited and stress free, and that doesn't sound stress free when you do it that way.
Yeah.
So truly when I had Amanda and we aligned, I felt like I could breathe again. I felt like I could take the weight off. It was great. I didn't have to advocate or convince her of anything because where the things were, we really leaned on each other. There was many times in the journey that we both would look at each other and be like, "How are you feeling? How does this sound? Oh, can I get your advice on this?" Because they've had babies before. So it's beautiful to lean on each other. I can't imagine like picking up the phone and calling an attorney to ask something as simple as supplements or if we could do something. Like when I literally have the person carrying my baby, I should be able to pick up the phone.
Yeah. I want to get
Yeah.
back to your individual stories, but since we're kind of on this topic a little
Oh,
bit,
sorry, hold on. My eyes watering.
no, you're good.
Like my one eye. I'm like, oh my gosh.
It's that time of year.
I
Um,
know. It's so bad here in Charlotte. It's like so awful.
but yeah, I want to get back to your individual stories because I have a few more questions just
Yeah.
about that. But since we're talking about this specific topic and how it feels so transactional and how
Yes.
each of you sort of felt that in your own respects, how in Little Seed Match, how have you changed that, right? Because there are certain legalities we can't get rid of. There are certain things that, the clinics are going to require from like
Mhm.
legal and psych
Yeah.
and things like that.
Yeah.
So, like, there's certain things you can't get rid of, but like, how does Little Seed Match flip the script so it doesn't feel so transactional the way you both felt it?
Yeah, yeah, it doesn't bypass those. What it does is it expedites those things because it's easy that you already agree. So we follow ASRM guidelines with
Mhm.
every surrogate that comes through. So that doesn't change because it's an independent supported journey. They still go have escrow. They still have their attorney. They still go through psych. They do all those things. Background, identity check, check for sex offender. All of those things are still in place. But Amanda can tell you how different it is inside when we give that autonomy back to both sides.
Yes. And so one of the biggest things up front is once you become a member, you see all the profiles. All those profiles list very important things that matter, not just lifestyle, not just diet or religion, it's termination stance. It's things that are you willing to do an endometrial scratch? Are you willing to do one embryo or a single embryo transfer? There are things that kind of just take the load off the intended parent and the surrogate, knowing where the other one already stands in such big topics, if you will. And so
Yeah.
once you get on, you get to see all of the profiles. Once you feel like you connect, you can talk to many. You can talk to, kind of date, like we say in there. Talk to many of them to see where is that alignment. We designed it so in the platform, you're able to talk to everybody within there secured and safely. Like Jessica said, we have a pretty good vetting system. We have it where you have background, identity, sex offender check. We do a home evaluation to make sure safety for where the child will be going and where the child will be growing.
Yeah.
And so we have all these measures. We do in-depth interviews to find out what really aligns. So Jessica and I really want to be a part of the process. We really want to know our members. So that way, when we see things come up or they have questions, we're a sounding board. From there, what happens is you connect. Then, when you feel comfortable, you can step off platform with FaceTime or meet in person, and then starts that process. You guys have created this foundation, this alignment. A lot of times Jessica talks about like, hey, it's not so much location because you have your neighbor 2 doors down that you're like, man, I can't stand that person. Would you want them
So
to
true.
carry for you? No. But that friend that you've had that's a few states away that you can pick up like you guys never left off. So really finding more in within that person deeper allows, like Jessica said, expedite the process. So once you guys decide to match, all of the surrogate will CC the intended parent, send all those documents to the fertility clinic. Fertility clinics, exactly, Ashley, you're right that they can start to either narrow down and make that tighter. And
Yeah.
so what we recommend is the intended parents know your fertility clinic's guidelines because they can squeeze in on some of those things
Yeah.
that can limit a surrogate for being a candidate there.
Yeah.
Um, and we have had talks with intended parents that have said, I love this surrogate. This journey is worth it to walk with them. I'm going to look at transferring my embryos to a clinic that will accept them because their
Yes.
BMI is 32 versus 31. And so something like that's been in talks because you have the ability, the knowledge, the support to kind of change the game and make it work for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The match is the core,
Mhm.
truly the core to the journey.
Well, and I think when we think about surrogacy journeys, we're often thinking about the intended parent, right? And
Mhm.
the outcome that we want for the intended parent. But Amanda, like in your journey with you guys together, like, I mean, this seems like it was so much more of just it's a partnership, and
100%.
making you feel like a valued,
Mhm.
not, this is like an awful word, but not just like a vessel, right? Like
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
you're there, you're a part of it, and now you
Mhm.
guys have been bonded, and it sounds like a lot of what Little Seed Match does, right? I'm
Mhm.
sure a lot of these relationships carry on beyond the delivery, of that pregnancy, and it's just a, really beautiful way to bring life into the world.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a beautiful story to tell your children of how they came.
Yeah. And I imagine it makes that conversation easier down the road. I know you guys are still like, it hasn't been that long, right? I think Jessica, yeah.
Yeah, she's 5 months this week.
Yeah, so but I imagine
Yeah.
that as you get further along, like it'll be a different conversation than if all of a sudden Amanda was no longer in your life. And I mean, clearly you guys have joined up and started now Little Seed Match together, but I imagine even if you didn't do that,
Correct.
you guys would still be in each other's lives.
Oh yeah, 100%. I think
Mhm.
again going back to if you create a transactional experience like and then it's done, then you can expect that those intended parents have felt like I just paid for a service and I'm going to be done. And that leaves the surrogate feeling like, oh no, like I do want to still see what the baby looks like in a year and I do want to connect. And we have found with Little Seed Matches that we have a lot of seasoned surrogates that have come through and
Mhm.
they're like, this is what was missing. Like it became so transactional that unfortunately after the end, they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that these things were put in place that I didn't even really want or ask for, but felt pressured through a traditional
Mhm.
model, and therefore the outcome afterwards was not what they expected. And it kind of hurts both parties
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
honestly, when you talk to an intended parent and a surrogate, just initially, they both want to pour into each other. Like that was my very first thing. I was like, I wanted to pour into Amanda because I was so grateful. It was amazing. And so that allowed me to do it and not feel like, oh my gosh, everything's in legal. I have to give you X of a spa day. I have to supply X when I literally probably tenfold did more just doing it naturally than I would have put it into a legal agreement. So I think there's stuff to be said about just having that natural connection
Mhm.
and allowing that relationship to naturally unfold.
Yeah. I would love to take a step back for a second, and Jessica, specifically for you, I think, and everybody's, this answer is going to be very different for everybody. So, our listeners, please know this will be Jessica's story and everything. But I do feel like there's a lot of people that struggle, after you've tried to have your baby and you've had the struggles that you've had, right? And everybody's story is going to look differently. But
Yes.
then your doctor brings up, could be anything, right? Like using donor egg, using donor sperm, using donor embryo, or using a surrogate. Like that can be a gut punch.
Oh yeah.
To, like you thought your family would look a certain way, or it would be brought into the world a certain way because that's what we see and that's what society shows us, right?
Yeah.
And so we have to sort of come to grips with, like, or come to terms with ourselves. Are we comfortable with that? Are we okay with that? Is that what we want to do? And for some people, that's going to be no. For some people, that's going to be, yeah, I am open to that. So I wonder if you could, and again, this is your own personal thing. And so everybody's going to have a different
Mhm.
answer to this, but like, how did that process kind of come about for you, and sort of like how you sort of process that? And it doesn't have to be perfect because it may not be.
Yeah.
And that's okay too. And then, like, yeah, like how did, and then obviously you have your beautiful daughter, and it was this, wonderful experience. And, so many people have that. But yeah, can you like maybe like help some other people who are maybe having that conversation with their doctor about surrogacy, maybe hesitant about it? Could you maybe like just
Yeah.
help some people like through your own
Yeah.
experience, like from your
Yeah.
own words, because you did experience it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it is hard to swallow. It is a big step, and I think the minute you really start looking for a surrogate, reality kicks in. They tell you surrogacy, and you're like, uh huh, I hear you. And you're like, what does this look like? And it feels really overwhelming. You're like, how am I finding someone? And how is this legit? And how am I affording it? And like everything is running through your head. And it's running through fast because usually when you're at that point in a fertility clinic is telling you it's because you've obviously like had some kind of medical or later in life, like there's a reason why you naturally couldn't do it. And so you're having to swallow that pill on top of then being like, okay, wait, I have to totally let go and someone else is carrying. So it I had to quickly decide. For me, I do well with like, okay, I'm not going to like sit in the grief, and I can't because it's an easy place to sit in, right? I remember joining like groups and people would be really upset and crying and going through egg retrieval and doing injections, and they would like literally cry on film and be really emotional, and that was their journey. But for me, I was like, I have to find the hope. I have to find the positivity. So when we went into egg retrieval, I was like, oh my gosh, one day closer. Like, this is so exciting. Like, every day was like, we were blessed to be able to do it, to be able to go through that. And so we just kind of flipped the script in our mindset.
Mhm.
And I think that was a very powerful thing for me because I was like, okay, we've got to remove as much as we can the stress, and we've got to look for this like light in this tunnel. And I will tell people who are going through the surrogacy journey, it wasn't until I met my match and everything just fell into place that I was like, okay, I'm actually really excited because I really do believe that's the core. Like, I think a lot of times we, even myself, get caught up in like, oh my gosh, escrow, oh my gosh, legal, oh my gosh, like all these little pieces. In reality, none of these things can fall into place until you find a match. And that match is going to make or break whether you even move forward to those steps. So I would say take it one step at a time and truly like sit down with your partner, or if it's yourself. And for me, I made a list of like my non negotiables. What did it look like for if I were to carry my own? That I was like, this is what I envisioned. And I knew my turning point with Amanda when she was like, tell me what you envision. Tell me what it looks like for you. And that like always like chokes me up and emotional because she cared to ask. She didn't have to.
Yeah.
Technically, it's like her body carrying it, and it's amazing, but she cared to every step of the journey. But way before we transferred, to be like, show me what this looks like for you. I want to carry as close as like if it were you as possible, down to like the way I chose that she delivered my daughter. So it just wonderful. So I will tell people, find that match, navigate this together, it is amazing. You will breathe again. You will find hope again, and do it, and don't settle. Don't settle on just anybody who's going to carry because they meet ASRM guidelines, because they meet your clinic guidelines, because they're next door. It is a long journey ahead and it is worth it. But like, that is something that I would say is the best thing I would tell somebody. Like, that's the point that you really should dive deep in and find that connection.
Yeah. I imagine that there is, well, I guess I would like to hear, I understand the differences between what Little Seed Match is doing and what we see maybe in a more traditional surrogate like
Mhm.
agency. Tell me why somebody may, there may be people who don't want that kind of relationship. I imagine
A
that
hundred
there
percent.
may be, is there any um is there any like options within Little Seed Batch where maybe you don't maybe build as close for relationships? Because I have encountered some patients where like I don't really want a relationship. And
Yeah. So with that in their profile, they can put with
Mhm.
their journey if they want to have a post journey. What does that look like? So they get to write all that. So somebody is not again being shown someone as a match, and then all of a sudden you find out, oh my gosh, you're really not aligned with that. So again, you're seeing that in the front end. So then that would be somebody
okay.
I wouldn't directly communicate with. So there's doesn't mean little seed match does not mean that you are connected for life. What we are building is the alignment. So even if we'll align on everything, doesn't mean that you're going to stay best friends for the rest of your life and build a business together like me and Amanda did. But what it means in that point in time, it's like in that season of life, you guys
Mhm.
truly connected and built. You guys, I mean, we're creating a baby.
Yes.
There's no other way to look at that. And it's more than a business deal. It is one of the most important things in someone's life. And it's also
Mhm.
changing the surrogate's life, right?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I think we need to all start looking at that as a bigger picture. So just in that moment. But afterwards, yes, of course, it's whatever someone feels like. There's not an
Mhm.
expectation of what it should be. It's what they envision for their journey. And
Yeah.
that's what makes that alignment. Maybe they both don't want to communicate afterwards. And that's perfect. They both don't.
Yeah. I love, okay, that clears a lot up for me, and I love that. And it almost makes me wonder why all agencies don't operate this way. Like, do you have any insight on why it is the way it is now versus,
Mm.
I mean, this just seems like,
Seems
why
obvious. Seems
yeah,
like
why wouldn't it
everyone
be
should
this
be
way?
doing this.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and we know like some businesses are built on profitability first,
Yeah.
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we know infertility is on the rise.
Mhm.
And when me and Amanda did this, we had lived the experience from both sides. This was truly
Mhm.
what we walked and navigated. And it was just our passion to help. This is literally like
Yes.
we work regular full-time jobs and still wanted to do this. Like we were up till 2 a.m. all the time connecting. Like it was important that we were walking in the journey with who
Mhm.
our members were that we came into the platform, into the community. So it was very important how we build this and that we were involved and
Mhm.
they were never passed off. But that again, the forefront was always to grow a family.
Yes.
And that is
Yeah.
hugely important to us.
Mhm.
Yeah, like I mean you all keep using the term alignment, which I absolutely love, but going back to just the initial step of everybody that wants to join and become a member of Little Seed Match, they fill out this form, and I've seen forms at agencies, right? Like I've reviewed them, I've seen them. Like it's so cool that you just it's more than alignment. Like you have that alignment at the end, but it's like that transparency, that setting that
100%.
expectation from the very beginning, which everybody wants in their fertility journey, I think in general, that I think is
Yes.
missing a lot of times, right?
Yes.
Um,
Exactly.
so I think you can, like, even from the beginning, as you are reviewing all these things, it's not just, oh, what's their blood type and what's, X, Y, and Z
Yeah.
and what's their basic history and all this kind of, it's no, it's like, how do they live? What does this
Yes.
look like? What do they believe in? What kind of relationship do they want to have? And then you can align on more than just the medical or the clinical.
Exactly.
And I feel like that in infertility in general, I think a lot of times that gets taken away from a lot of people's journeys is it is medical, it is clinical, unfortunately,
Mhm.
but it is a beautiful thing in the end of it. And that's why, you've got to have those medical and clinical pieces. But like you said, it's so much more than that. And to
Yeah.
have that from the beginning,
Mhm.
I can only imagine that, like, I know if I was experiencing the journey, right, to have more of that personal from the very
Yeah.
beginning would just give me a different perspective on what I was about to go through, whether that's the surrogate side, or the
Yes.
intended parent side.
Yeah,
And I can
exactly.
assume that your surrogates that are maybe more seasoned, that have done this with other agencies, are probably, they probably have given, I mean, I'd love to hear, have they given you any feedback of like, oh my gosh, this is so much better or different, or
Ye-
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
The things we hear is
Mhm.
quite wild.
Yes, yes. I think the first thing is everybody is surprised when Jessica and I show up to the consult. They're like,
Yes.
"Wait, you guys?" And so right from the get-go, it's we establish that we want that connection. And I think then the second thing, and Jessica, chime in if you think as well, is the autonomy, exactly what you're saying. Not only for the intended parents, but for the surrogates as well. The ability to choose without
Yeah.
feeling a pressure.
Yeah.
Because I remember watching, learning about what Jessica was doing previous with her three miscarriages before the fourth, and then watching the journey of what it takes in the fertility clinic for her to go through egg retrieval, and she loses that autonomy. She is told when to be where, what to do, medicines, this, that, and so to be able to give that back to both sides, that's probably the second thing that usually comes up is like, and then like, wait, what's on the platform? What do I get to
Yeah.
see?
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
It's great to be changing it. Yeah, we hear, when I say it's wild, we hear all the things from seasoned surrogates.
yes,
They have,
and
and I
intended
think,
parents.
and intended parents, like from surrogates being like, hey, I've been offered from agencies 5 to 10K to change my beliefs and stance on things to make
Oh,
myself more marketable.
oh Jesus.
I have been told I am not marketable because I will not terminate for cleft palate or Down syndrome. So there's a lot of
Wow.
things. Um, that as an intended parent makes me so sad, because those were some, like, how many intended parents are looking for surrogates like that are not being shown because the traditional model felt like, again, a third party's opinion, they weren't marketable. And that transparency, if they would have seen a profile, they would have been like, oh my gosh, yes. But because you don't have the transparency and you have no idea if they have any surrogates or they do, you're not able to see them. Someone hand selects it and then shows it to you, so it's filtered. So when I started hearing that, and myself of thinking, oh my gosh, so many amazing surrogates out there that are trying to help families are being stopped, are being basically gate kept back because someone's personal opinion that they're not marketable. When in fact, when they get onto platform, I'm telling you, like, they're just like, oh my gosh, we instantly match. There is somebody for everybody,
Hmm.
and it's not me and
Yeah.
Amanda's place to say that somebody is not looking for that. As long as they're
Yeah.
falling under, the clinic guidelines and things like that, from there, it's the two people walking the journey. That's the ones who choose, who know best.
It almost feels like you're taking, because sometimes I'll go out on, I'll be in these groups on Facebook or like
Mhm.
moms groups, and you'll see posts of women looking for surrogates or looking for, somebody to
Yeah.
carry. And it almost feels like you're taking what they're doing on their own and bringing it into a process that is, because they don't want to, right, they don't want to use the traditional agency route. They want to find someone that they're connecting with.
Yes.
So you're like creating that process for them and doing some of that work for them, or a lot of the work for them ahead of time, and
Yeah.
giving them a curated profile of people that they can, match with.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It gives them a lot of options and safety. I
Yes.
think Amanda
Yeah.
brought that home best with safety.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. As a surrogate, I was like, I would be background checked. I would make sure I had my support. Well, in the big scheme of the whole process, that again about the baby, where's this baby going? So it was very important to me that intended parents walked the same vetting process as surrogates. Minus OB clearance, of course, but we're walking that same path from consultation to home evaluation to background identity, sex offender check, all these stop points. And one of the things with Little Seed Match is you build your own profile, you create your own profile. So what's beautiful is that when you get on, we didn't manipulate in any way. We didn't do the profiles. They get to showcase their family, be creative, and really show who they are and who they're going to connect with.
Yeah.
Within that security that we did, we really wanted to build a community. And so there are community threads. So anybody that's on platform that you see or can connect with has gone through that vetting service. We don't let anybody on and then vet them. And so the intended parents and the surrogates know who they're talking to has been through that same path. So there's no anonymous that you can see like on Facebook, or people are serious, they're on there, they're ready,
Right.
or they can say when they're ready, flexible, or 3 to 6 months, what that might look like for them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think, I mean, back to your point of like agencies or whoever, like whatever that is, paying somebody to like change their beliefs so they're more marketable.
It's
I mean,
wild.
I think that's just one of the many reasons we could list why surrogacy gets such a bad rep
Hmm.
sometimes.
Very
Oh
taboo.
yeah,
Like
100%.
there
Yes.
there is a lot of negativity around surrogacy, and
Yes.
for those of us who are in the fertility space and know good organizations like yours and others that are out there that are doing really
Mhm.
good, we're like, man, it's a beautiful thing. It's not this at all, and you just want to
Yeah.
scream and say like,
Yes.
no, that's this story that you're seeing because it made news because it's a terrible story and people are going to read it, so that's why it's in publication.
Of
That's not
course.
really what surrogacy is.
Yeah.
But
Exactly.
stories like that, or stories like somebody found someone on Facebook and they took 10 grand from them.
Yeah.
Like I've seen stuff like that, and it's like, man, that's why this gets such a bad rep.
Hmm.
It's not just people trying to make money. It's not just people for whatever vanity reasons and
Yes.
celebrities not wanting to carry and stuff. Like you see stuff like
Hmm.
that all the time too, and people just make so many assumptions, and it's
Hmm.
it's really sad because that's not the reality of it.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yes, there are a lot of myths on surrogacy and the whole process, and from intended parents and views of what they're doing, going through egg retrieval, what they're doing with their embryos, all the way through using a surrogate, what that surrogate looks like. They're only in it for the money, and what we have found is this outpour of heart-led intended parents and surrogates that are in it for the right reasons. Beyond that, we've had professionals in the industry reach out to us that are like, yes, we love what you're doing, we see what's been happening, and this is great. And so we've known we're on the right path because of the support and love that we have been shown for us to continue.
Yeah. Yeah. It's great. We've had matches in under 5 days right now we're having,
Mm,
which is unheard of in the
yeah.
industry.
Yeah, it's been beautiful.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Oh, I want to shift back a little bit. One thought that had come into my mind, Amanda, when you were speaking earlier, and how you wanted to, you had seen and known Jessica went through these losses, and tell me a little bit, like prior to meeting Jessica, like what was your understanding of the fertility journey, or like what was your perspective prior to kind of seeing what she went through?
Yeah, well, I guess I could take it all the way back. For most of us in high school, it was, oh no, you will get pregnant the second you
Yeah.
think about it.
Yeah.
And so you are scared at first, not learning your cycle, not learn there's, gosh, that's a whole other thing we can get on,
Oh
but not
yeah.
really understanding our bodies in general and going through this process. So fortunately, when my husband and I said, yes, let's create a family, we were able to. And then what that happened is when you start to enter that space, you start to see your friends and notice that, wow, infertility is a thing. And I have rose-colored glasses with that. I don't personally have any my husband and I don't have any connection directly to that, but we have seen our friends walk that path. And it was always pulling of like, what does that look like, how can I support you, but also like, what can I say and not say. So it was this space that I wanted to be there to support them, but I didn't also understand how, because it was such a taboo subject.
Yeah.
And like Jessica was saying, becoming a statistic, 1 in 6, that could be your best friend is silently going through something and not able to share or know how to share. And so I think when I as I started to mature in my life and have my children, I started to just simply ask, what do you need from me and how can I help? What does that look like? Is it mean meal prepping, sending meals? So all these things that opened my eyes to infertility. And then with Jessica, when I met her, we were a coworker relationship for a little bit. I learned about her losses and that she was going to do a fourth, and that was very exciting. And then just the compassion, I guess you can say, the feel, the understanding of just being a mom and knowing how amazing it is on this side, how wanted I for my children, how bad I wanted them, and appreciate where I'm at. That somebody was trying so hard, doing all the right things, tenfold, everything, and was not having that. I felt like it was something that I could be a part of their journey. Small part, meaning in the life. But my husband says it best, that for the 10 months, year that it might be unknown for us, because I was a first time surrogate, it gives them a lifetime of what we have. And it only is going to make my marriage and my family stronger foundation. And so it was, like I said, an honor to be able to be a surrogate and to walk that path with Jessica and Frank.
Can you talk a little bit about like what that was like for your husband and your kids? Like how
Yeah.
how old are your kids and how old, yeah, what was their perspective of like mom's pregnant, but
Yeah.
it's
Not
not
ours.
it's
Yeah.
not our sibling.
Yes, I totally can. So at first, when Jessica kind of told me about that surrogacy was the option that she was contemplating, I first was like, okay, yes, let me give you that space, because that's, again, like you were mentioning earlier, it's a hard pill to swallow. Like, it becomes reality. And so we both gave each other some space. And my husband and I, what we really thought is like, this is something intimate that him and I share. But again, it always came back to faith as our core, our purpose, what this looks like in the long term for everybody. It not only gave, Jessica and Frank a way to grow their family, it also helped with our family as well. And so with my children, I have three little boys, my 6, 5, and a 3-year-old. Um, and so I didn't quite tell them right away, because you just don't know and they don't understand the whole aspect. But they knew Jess and Frank, they've met them before. And so when they actually noticed my belly, which made me feel very good to myself, I was almost 7.5 months pregnant
Yeah.
when they noticed.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Wow.
And my oldest goes, "Mommy, why is your belly getting so big?" And I said, "Why do you think?" And he goes, "Is there a baby in there?" And then immediately it was just like this love that they had, because I told them, mommy's body is designed to help another family have what we have. So I'm growing this baby for Jessica and Frank, and they're going to have a family just like ours. It's going to be beautiful. And the boys, they ate that up. They loved it. They would talk to her name's Olivia. They would talk to Olivia, and they would kiss my belly. They would rub it. They would really like to see it. And of course, it would be in the most, grocery store, like, let me see Olivia. And I would hold it up. But yes, we did have to have some conversations with their teachers, tell them what was actually happening, because my 6-year-old would come in and be like, "My mom's having a baby. We're giving it away." And I'm like, that's not how we
no.
feel about this. And so it was cute because it's innocent. And really, my husband and I had the conversation of, we need to just tell them the truth. For us, our family, what made sense is tell them the truth in digestible pieces that make sense for them. And so, like, my 3-year-old would like poke my belly button, thinking he's giving a high five to Olivia, and it was just
Aw,
like, it was so
that's so
sweet.
cute.
And actually, now, when we FaceTime, or we actually went to Jessica's goddaughter's play, and I brought my kids, and Olivia will look for them when she hears their voice,
Yeah.
and
Aw.
it's the connection they have. And yeah, and I really think overall, what it's going to show my boys is that we are here to help and serve others. And if it feels and resonates right, that there can be other ways, because who knows who they're going to come across in their life, their own situation with their spouse, their best friend, that they can be some sort of pillar for somebody of, hey, my mom and dad did this, and this is what happened, and it was amazing.
What a beautiful
I love
like
that.
gift that you've given them to show them that. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
honestly, and I know like the 3-year-old probably won't have any sort of memory whatsoever, but at
The
the same
3-year-old
time,
Lincoln, Olivia's his favorite. He talks about Olivia, asks about
Oh.
Olivia. He sends little video messages to
It's
her.
so cute.
Oh.
Yes.
It is, and I think, the funniest part is when Olivia, after I delivered and I'm back home, he said, "Well, can I go back in?" I'm like, "Oh, no. No, no, no." I was like, "Wait a second."
Like, that's not how that works.
Yeah, I was like, "Nope, once you're out, man." But, yeah, he probably the other 2, the 5 and the, 6-year-old, Henry and Theodore, they have more of that, like, "Oh, she's so sweet." Like, "Oh, that baby doll, like, take care of."
Yeah.
Where Lincoln is like, "What's Olivia doing? Where's Olivia?
Oh.
Let's talk to Olivia." And so it's really sweet.
So
Yes.
interesting how they all process it differently, and you would
Mhm.
assume like the older ones would, maybe like the younger would think more of like a doll, and then it's like reverse. It's
Yes.
so interesting how kids process stuff. But I would love if you both are open to talking about it, and feel free not to. But and I'm assuming this is something that's probably in the intake form and something a part of that alignment process. But
Mhm.
could you speak to both sides, or from both sides, the experience of like the actual embryo transfer? What did you all decide? Like, were you in the room? What did
Yeah.
that sort of look like? And then
Yeah.
also on the labor and delivery side, because I think a lot of intended
Yeah.
parents and surrogates are like, what does that look like? I have, and again, that's something you align on 100%, but would
Mhm.
love for,
Yes.
if you all are open to talking about both sides
Yeah.
and both of those experiences, to sort of normalize and humanize that process for other people that may be thinking about it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Embryo transfer was great. It was
Mhm.
me and my husband with her in the room. It was beautiful. It was great to be able to be there. It was something that me and Amanda both openly talked about together. Like,
Mhm.
Amanda, who do you want in the room with you? And like, literally before I could even finish, she was like, oh my God, of course you and Frank. And I was like, do you want your husband? Like, it's okay. I understand. And she's like, no, it's your baby. Like,
Mhm.
and kind of honestly, embryo transfer is nothing. Yes, it's invasive if you want to say, but it's not painful or something that you're like going through excruciating pain where you're like,
Yeah.
I want a handheld of somebody. So it's just kind of
Mhm.
like this very exciting, moment of
Yes.
time. And it's really a big deal for the intended parents because it's the
Huge.
start of like their baby being born, it's the start of the journey. So I was so excited and thankful that Amanda was like, yeah, of course, you guys. So we were in there, which was beautiful. We played Christian music, we
Mhm.
prayed before we went in together.
Yeah.
It was perfect. We went out and had lunch
Yeah.
afterwards,
Mhm.
and just was like, all right, cheers, like here's to the journey, like here we
Yes.
go.
Yes.
um
And then
so
for on my side with that, we
yeah.
knew it was coming, so I let my husband know. Like, him and I had a conversation, and I was like, really, who would we, if it was us, who would be in there? And his exact questions, the whole journey is, Amanda, how are you feeling? He was my rock. He was always my
Yes.
check-in. And he's like, no, they should definitely be there because I will be right here when you come home. If you
Mhm.
needed, like, don't worry about the kids or this, like, it'll be okay. Because yes, I wanted to just lay down and not move for like ever. I was like, oh, it's gonna stick.
Yes, yes, yes. So we went through that journey
Hmm.
twice.
Yes.
The
Okay.
first one didn't take, the second one took.
Hmm.
And then, oh my gosh, our delivery, I think that definitely goes back to alignment for sure. I will never, and I will try not to get emotional in this part because it was like the most like, oh my God, I already get like teary-eyed because Amanda again was so caring, about me and how I couldn't carry and what that looked like. And it was just so touching, because as a mom, all you want to do is carry your own. And I think when that moment happens, you're like, oh gosh. So I don't know how far along we were in, probably about second trimester kind of came around. She knew that I lived a very holistic lifestyle. So did she.
Hmm.
But I remember she was like, I just envisioned whatever Amanda was comfortable with is what she had gone, which was hospital birth. It's what she has always done. And she said, what does it look like for you? And I said, well, I was like, I always envisioned a home birth. And she was like, okay. And Amanda's like very go with the flow, and I'm the type A one. So she's like, okay. And I said, let's, but you don't have to. Like, this is just, and she's like, no, no, no. She's like, let's interview together. Let me see what this even looks like. So again, we were so united. Like, we interviewed everybody together. We probably interviewed a lot
Yes.
of midwives. And
Mhm.
doulas and how we're going to support each other and what does this look like for both parties and who's going to be in the room. So she we met with several and we both were like, this, she's like, yes, this is exactly would be amazing. And so we did a home birth, we did a water birth at my house. Her husband was there, my husband was there, my goddaughter was there. We had I hired a reflexologist for her before labor at my house and after. We had the doula that was supporting like all the families in the room. But yeah, in the water birth, I got to be in the tub to like catch Olivia and do immediately skin to skin. It was amazing. And then a lot of people ask or don't realize, like then I did we started SNS. So, well, first we used her colostrum. So Olivia was able to latch and we like my husband was able to syringe like colostrum in her mouth. So I got that connection where she was able to latch and then we continued SNS. So Amanda's breast milk with a small tube going to me and then Olivia.
Wow.
It was beautiful, but I will tell you, in this journey of that, Amanda was the rock star. Like 2 hours after delivering my daughter, she was like, "I'm ready to go home." I'm like, "What?" And I'm like, "You're kidding." And everyone's like, "No." She's like, I feel great." Like my daughter was the biggest baby that she had delivered and she had minor tears with the others. This one she never tore. She literally was like rocked out and laughed. I was like, "No way." Like she was so good. I mean, she was good the entire pregnancy like, but when I'm like, Amanda, like my goddaughter was like, "Wow, having babies is easy." I'm like, "No, no,
Oh
no.
gosh.
That is
You're like,
not, this is a false sense of like, no." I mean, because Amanda pushed her out in like 2 pushes and then stayed for a
Right.
couple hours and was done. And it wasn't like, it was just so peaceful at home. And there wasn't like what you see on the movies, right? Especially for a 15-year-old where she envisioned like screaming and, oh my gosh. And it was just, Olivia came out and so calm. And I don't know, but Amanda can definitely tell you like her side from going from hospital to like a total home birth and no pain medication,
oh my
what that
goodness.
was like. Yeah.
I'm so curious. Tell us.
Yeah.
So my husband and I, we always knew, well, let me just start. We never did any classes. We were both very like, we're not the first, we're not the last. We got this. Like, here we go. And I did not have the community I have now. I didn't have the understanding. We just moved to North Carolina and there are some rules and I've heard some things and I was like, okay. So I went through about 3 offices to see what would be the right fit. I was looking for that midwifery approach. I wanted to make sure that it was understood that I wanted things to be as smooth and natural as possible, but having the options of things if I wanted. Um, and so, yes, it was the difference really is that I didn't have to advocate for myself so hard. I didn't have to ask, what's in that bag? Don't touch that. Wait a second. Don't clip it yet. And oh no, my husband. And it was beautiful because who we spoke with through the whole journey was there. Where in the hospital, I had nurse shifts and everybody was so helpful and understanding, but I had to re explain myself every single time. And they were responsive. It just was like this I want to be present in what I'm doing and what my body is doing. My husband and I want to be here, but we have to also keep eyes everywhere. And so we not like my husband, I didn't after we delivered and everything with Olivia, I didn't say anything. I was just like trying to see what he was saying because I was like, oh, I love this. And but I was just like, what did you think? And he's like, it was amazing for the fact that I was able to be so serene and calm. I was supported and I was understood. Because for me, the hardest part as a surrogate is I didn't want to feel like I was on show. I would definitely close up, and I knew that would stop progression for me. I'm very in tune to my body, and so I was very forward with like I would love for you guys to be there, and I'll tell you when to get in the tub. But they were very respectful of my space, and then my husband was who I did it with before, and I needed him to be my focus. And they created that space. They created everything and more that I could have ever needed for my husband and I to do that journey. But going back, hearing him speak about home birth and how Olivia, when she came out, and was just, it was peaceful. And then he saw Jessica and Frank and Olivia together and how it was so intimate for them. And he saw me and how I was recovering and being taken care of and watched. And then even postpartum, when, came home and we got to sleep in our own bed that night. He didn't have to sleep on that couch, which everyone knows is over on that side, but they can't complain because who are they to complain, right?
Right.
Um,
Right.
And so we got to be in our own bed and wake up with our children. And really, what was, I think, one of those myths is that I was able to focus on myself and recover. So I had a easy, beautiful recovery. Granted, I had an easy delivery. I didn't have any complications. So it was, and no complications in the hospital either. But the recovery was different. That it was like everything worked with my body, and that's what really made the difference.
I
Thank
think
you both for
all,
sharing that.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, clearly, I think a lot of what contributed to maybe the ease and how smooth everything went is just how prepared and how in tune you guys were, and how, all of those conversations that you had. And sure, anything can happen in a birthing scenario. Ashley and I have worked in
Yes.
labor and delivery, like
Yeah.
we've seen a lot, but I think a lot of it just speaks to like who you both are, and again, just the communication that you guys had up front allowed things to go the way that they needed to go and go
Yes.
smoothly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Totally agree with that.
Um, we've talked a little bit about like Amanda and her husband's sort of relationship during it, but Jessica, I'm curious. Sound your husband's name's Frank. We've learned that. Um, how was that for you all? Like, how did he? We've talked about this on the podcast before about men and navigating the sort of infertility journey and the different aspects of that depending on what the journey looks like. And they do process things very differently. And sometimes
Mhm.
that can be a strain on marriage and
Mhm.
things like
Oh
that.
yeah.
So, yeah, could you speak to that a little bit? Whatever you're comfortable sharing
Yeah.
of like how did that affect you both? And,
Mhm.
obviously he was very participatory in everything as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think it sometimes I think it puts a lot of stress or pressure on them because they have to hold it together, during my losses and those things. And it's you kind of see it, but you're so in your zone of loss and such that it's almost sometimes you feel like you're almost in separate vehicles going through the same accident, the same issue. And it can definitely put so much pressure and strain on a marriage, I mean, especially if people are really wanting children. And for us, it's a lot of stress. It's not just stress of like wanting children, but it's the stress and pressure that we felt of like the financial that was coming with this and through this, right? So you're grieving, you're losing, and you're spending a fortune at the same time. And so it's like which part can you process,
Mm.
you know? And figuring out how we're going to navigate the financial aspect. How are we going to have a family? And it puts a lot of weight because you all of a sudden are like, oh my gosh, I feel like I need to make a decision. Because we felt like the longer we wait, we were just sitting in this, again, sadness for us. It just felt like, oh, we've got to get out of here. So we can either sit in it for a really long time. And I think that was just making us not in a great place, or we can like climb out of this together and do something with this. Um, so yeah, I think it wasn't until after Olivia was born when I really saw my husband kind of like have like breathe. And it was the first time that I saw him kind of like really kind of emotionally be like, oh, like the first week I saw the way he was with Olivia, and it was almost like I dealt with postpartum depression after Olivia, and I saw him almost have some signs of like the first week, the way he would like kiss her head. It was almost like a like holding like a niece. And I'm like, babe, it's ours.
Mm.
She's ours. And he's like, I know. It's almost like he had to switch over because we were in this ultra protective mode. Like we've always
Yeah.
lost. That's all we've known. Something's going to
Yeah.
be taken away from us. And I also didn't carry. So he wasn't coming home to being like the belly and the stuff. And so like our nursery wasn't finished. It was like I didn't have the nesting, and I think he didn't either. But it wasn't until she was born that I noticed it in the first week, and he warmed up quicker than I did. And that's where mine like really turned into postpartum depression. But he kind of shifted, and I could see that all of a sudden this like brightness came back to him. And he's like, and I remember he turned to me and he's like, babe, we've gone through so much in 4 years. And he's like, this is just such joy. I just want to sit in it. And I knew this when he could like, he let go. And that's what I mean. It's like, I wish somebody would have told me probably like 2 or 3 losses in, like maybe surrogacy then. I wish I wouldn't have been like
Mm.
pushing myself to continue, because that again, it just my body, I felt like it wreaked havoc. Marriage, it's so hard on your spouse, everything. And so that I wish even for our marriage that I would have said, you know what, I think we need to take a step back. It's just everybody in the journey was like, it can happen. Just, even infertility, like try again. It could, sometimes it's a fluke. And you start seeing people's face shift after you say second and third and fourth. But I think somewhere around like second or third, I wish I would have had somebody tell me, like, hey, because I think it would have helped in marriage and for my spouse and for myself. But I'm sure, God's timing with everything. And here we are, and it's beautiful. But I think looking back, that's what I would have said in my marriage and to help support myself and my husband.
Thank you for being vulnerable with that.
Yeah.
I can only imagine. I appreciate you shedding the light on like that bonding experience, and going through postpartum depression, because I think a lot of people wouldn't think that that would
Mhm.
be that would occur.
Mhm.
But I can imagine like the bonding is very different. You didn't carry the
Yeah.
pregnancy, and
Yeah.
so it
Yes.
probably felt, as you mentioned, like very fragile. Like,
Yes, yes. I think that comes with like loss. I've seen even a
Yeah.
difference
yeah.
as our intended parents join and they haven't had loss yet. So I think that the experience is a little bit different, and which is so nice, but I didn't realize. So I in my head when someone told me surrogacy and I was going through fertility, it's kind of like you just lump yourself all together with everybody else. And then you start to realize after, wait, everybody is having a different path of what led them to
Mhm.
surrogacy, and they all grieve and go through that differently. And,
Yeah.
so I felt like this, I should have had like counseling during. Again, part
Yeah.
of, I think, surrogacy, you're going through it and it becomes like you say, legal, escrow, you're going through this checkbox and then you're pouring into your surrogate. But somewhere along the way, it's like the question of like who pours into you guys, your spouse,
Mhm.
Yes.
you,
Yes.
because, that's so hard to walk. And it wasn't the fact that I didn't feel bonded with Olivia. That wasn't the case, but more so that like, oh my gosh, all of a sudden someone like plops like a baby in your hands and you had only known loss, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, wait, it's real. It's really happening. It's like your brain has to switch from like grief to happiness really, really fast. But then also, I told Amanda, we talked about it today because we talk about these conversations often, which is like, I also bringing my daughter into the world made me think of like, oh my gosh, I would have 4 little ones running around by now. So it kind of stirs
Mm.
up this thought because now you see this baby that's tangible and so happy and full of joy. And you're like, oh my gosh, I could have had 4 more. My life would have been different. And so you're processing both emotions on the total opposite end of the spectrum
Mhm.
kind of together.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really appreciate you sharing this because I don't think it matters if you've experienced a loss and then you do bring a child into the world, whether that's through surrogacy or not.
Mhm.
I think so many people just assume, oh, you're just supposed to be happy. You should be
Mhm.
Mhm.
happy. You finally have your baby. You should just be
Yes.
happy. And it's like, no, we got to stop talking like that because yeah, you
Yes.
could have had four, and those children still exist in your heart, and you're still a
Mhm.
mom to them,
Mhm.
and you just have to happen to have one on this side. And yes, you're
Mhm.
you're thankful for that, but that doesn't mean
Yeah.
you aren't
Yeah.
grieving what could have been. Still, that
Mhm.
doesn't,
Yes.
there's so much that still is
Yeah.
processing, and I think people just assume,
Mhm.
oh, your surrogate's pregnant, or oh, you're finally pregnant,
Yes.
and you're just supposed to all of a sudden be okay or be excited
Yes.
Yeah.
or not have all these other emotions, and that is BS for lack
Yeah.
of a better word.
100%.
Yeah.
And I didn't hear about like the possibility of postpartum depression at all from anybody. Like, not through any checkpoint did anyone ever say, like, hey, this could be possible. It wasn't until we started vocally speaking, because I was like, there needs to be awareness to the topic, that like counselors were coming out of the woodwork being like, oh my gosh, yes, this very much
Mhm.
so. Non birthing mothers, non birthing parents, like, they do suffer with that. It's way more common than you anticipate. But again, because I think infertility as a whole goes into this taboo subject, and then you add surrogacy on top of it, and it's really like,
Mhm.
oh, I don't know how to share this, I don't know how to talk about it, let
Yeah.
alone that you are not happy after the baby's here. Like, god forbid you say that out loud. This
Yeah.
expectation when you go on podcasts or people, they immediately are like, you're so excited. I'm like, I'm so excited, I'm so happy. I also am dealing with all the other things.
I just, and this could be, I would love to keep having this conversation, quite honestly, because
We
I
could
Yeah.
keep
do,
talking for a while.
yeah, because I do think that there is a lot of guilt, again, whether you went through a surrogacy journey or not,
Mhm.
especially in the infertility community, it's
Yeah.
like you wanted this child so, so, so desperately. And then they're here, and maybe you don't have that attachment right away, or you have
Yeah.
postpartum depression and you feel guilty. How could I
Yes.
feel this way?
Mhm.
It's supposed to be all sunshine and rainbows and love. And
Mhm.
it's not that way for everyone right away. And so,
Yeah.
I do think it's so important that our listeners and everybody hear this conversation, this part of the
Yes.
conversation. So thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was a big part of also why I felt like I didn't have counseling support, but I also didn't have other intended parents to talk to about like this. Nobody. And I think that's why when we built this, I'm like, how do we create that community inside? How
Mhm.
can someone be walking around the same time period as the same journey? And I wish I could have literally texted someone or called and been like, oh my gosh, like, how's your day? How are you feeling? Because
Yeah.
again, there's something to be said when someone's experiencing something with you that
Mhm.
gets
Yes.
it, that totally gets it, versus someone's, like, okay, I'm thinking about you. And you're like, mm-hmm, you know? So that was a big part. It's all those levels of added support that
Yeah.
is needed, not talked about, but that we built in because I don't want someone to experience,
Mhm.
to the extent that I went through, or not feeling like I knew others, when there's so many of us.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, we could keep chatting, and maybe we need to do this again in the future for sure, and have you guys back on, because
Yes.
I do think there's so much more we could touch on and communicate about, and so appreciate you both for being honest and vulnerable and
Yeah.
open about the real experiences
Yes.
inside,
Yeah.
and you can feel the passion behind what you're building, and what you're
Thank
building is
you.
different, and you really are trying to change the game in something that needs some changing in a lot of different ways. So I'm so excited, and Laura and I are both
Thank
so
you.
excited to see how this grows and continues, and excited to
Yeah.
continue the conversation. But unfortunately, we are at the top of the hour. But before we do wrap up, we do give all of our guests just the opportunity to share how can people find you, how can people work with you,
Yeah.
but also if you each would like to leave our listeners with just kind of that, if they take nothing else from today's episode, what would you like to leave sort of our listeners with today?
Yeah, and so in order to connect with Jessica and I, you can go to littleseedmatch.com. There's a lot of information on there, so if you want to take a look, but if you really want to just have a connection with us, scroll down to the bottom and sign up for that consult. We would love to touch base, no matter if it's something you're thinking about, wondering if you should, or if it's a right path for you. We're here for that conversation. And then we're on Instagram, and our handle is Little Seed Match. And really, I think something I just want people to know is that it's possible to have and not compromise on anything, to have that human connection. And it's beautiful. It can be amazing, and it can fit your life, and it can help just grow somebody else's as well as yours.
Yeah. No, that's beautiful. I would say that, my gosh, I would 100% agree with Amanda, but I would say that there's hope, and
Mhm.
that an independent journey is so doable. That for me, I didn't realize in the beginning until like we turned that corner, and it was amazing. And so I would say there's so much hope and so much beauty on the other side of this journey, and you know, they can absolutely do it, and you are strong.
Yeah.
Amazing. I think Ashley and I were like our faces this whole conversation. I'm just this was such an amazing conversation. I said before we started filming, like, it's Friday night. I'm exhausted. I don't know how. Like, hopefully my brain sticks with it. And this is just such an enthralling and wonderful conversation. And
Thank you.
we can't thank you guys enough for
Yes.
joining us this evening, and cannot wait for our listeners to hear this conversation. I think it's going to resonate with so many. And if you didn't notice, because I have to call out, Ashley almost started laughing at
I
one
did.
point when it was brought up about how journeys are different. So in this week's edition of Fertility is Not a Linear Journey, I just have to throw it in there because I've done it every week.
She says it in every episode.
But with all that said, for all of our listeners, we'll wrap up the way that we always do. So please, hit us up on Instagram, email us, like, subscribe, follow us. We want to hear from you. We want your feedback, and we want to continue to have these conversations. So we look forward to being back next week. So we'll talk to you all then.
See you next week.
If this conversation resonated, like, comment, or subscribe, share, send us your questions. Nothing is off limits.
And wherever you are in your journey, know this: you deserve support that's real and human. Never forget to ask your questions, advocate louder, and remember, you're not crazy. Fertility is hard.
That's it for today's episode of Fertility Nurses Unfiltered. Thanks for spending your time with us today.
We'll see you next time.